About 2 years ago, I made a video about the pros and cons of moving to Lethbridge. But let me tell you, a lot has changed. So I think it's time for an update. So let's get into the good and bad, and be sure to stick around because although there is a lot more good than bad, there is still some bad that you need to know about. My name's Kurtis Hawkins, and I'm a realtor located right here in Lethbridge, Alberta. And I make a ton of videos about Lethbridge, and I post home tours of my listings, and I even have a monthly market update podcast, so be sure to subscribe. But enough about that, let's get into this video. Starting off with the pros, let's talk about affordability. Lethbridge, Alberta has one of the most affordable housing markets in all of Canada, with the average home price of about $385,000, which is actually a new high for us. You can find an affordable home no matter your budget. For example, you can find a one-bedroom apartment for as little as $125,000. $380,000 gets you a detached home with about 1,100 square feet of living space, above grade, about 3 to 5 beds, and that is built within the last probably 10 to 15 years. $450,000 to $550,000 can still get you a brand new construction home in almost any area of the city. And in the $1 million plus price range, you're either looking at a large acreage or a large estate home, either with coulee views, a pond views, or a home in one of the beautiful estate communities in Lethbridge, like Prairie Arbor. Now, Lethbridge is a city, but commute times are still very low. Typically, the average commute time is going to be about 10 minutes day to day, but driving from one end of town all the way to the other is about 20 minutes on the maximum side. Did you know that Lethbridge has some of the mildest winters in all of the Prairie provinces? Did you also know that our summers are hot and dry? And did you also know that we get an average of 333 days of sunshine per year? Yep. That's all true. And our average summer temperature is about 26 degrees on average, and our average winter temperature is only -10. Now, of course, we do get extreme weather changes. Like in the summer, it could be as hot as 30 degrees or even as high as 40 degrees in a strong heat wave. In the winter months, it can get as low as -40. But in either case, neither of those scenarios really last that long before we level back out to our normal temperatures. As I mentioned, Lethbridge is a full-scale city, but how I like to describe Lethbridge is a big town and small city type of feeling. And the longer I live here, the more I grow to love knowing the owners of some of my favorite restaurants and local shops around Lethbridge. Or when I go to a concert or event, I am literally always running into at least one person that I know, which if you come from a big city, you'll know that is something that is very hard to come by. And I think if you moved here, you're not going to take that for granted. Ever since 2021, we all know what happened during those times, but there was a ton of businesses downtown that were heavily affected that had to close down. However, since then, the downtown core of Lethbridge is booming and has introduced a ton of new businesses and restaurants to the downtown core. And the city honestly has done a really good job of bringing back excitement into the downtown core. For example, they introduced Festival Square, which can be booked for live events and concerts. And they've had some major anchors that have moved in, like the Owl, where you can always catch live local music. And Blanco Cantina has just moved in, which is an amazing Mexican restaurant. And they have Lethbridge's first rooftop patio that just opened. And that's probably going to be my summer hangout all summer long. Before I get into a few more pros and then the cons, if you're thinking already of moving to Lethbridge, down below is a link to sign up for auto email listings. All you have to do is enter your criteria, and the first email you get will be all of the listings available within your criteria, and every email after that will be any new listing that hits the market, so you never miss one. But anyway, let's get back to the video. Another pro that I want to talk about, which is actually huge for the city, is that crime is on the decline. One of the biggest cons of Lethbridge, or what used to be a con of Lethbridge, was the crime. And if you've seen any of my other videos or listened to my podcast, you'll know that I always thought that the crime in Lethbridge was way overblown. I mean, at its worst a couple years ago, if you compared crime in Lethbridge to any other city, anecdotally, there is no way that Lethbridge was more dangerous than any other big city. However, since 2019, the crime rates are on the decline, and the community is seeing less crime year over year. To me, again, this has never been an issue, but I'm glad to know that the stats are proving what I've always known, which is that Lethbridge is one of the safest communities to live and raise a family. The brand new $70 million exhibition grounds are finally complete and is ready to host new events and is a gorgeous facility. Although this is great for Lethbridge and it adds a lot to the Henderson area, I think it's a statement piece and just a good example about how much investment that is coming into Lethbridge, and it shows that Lethbridge is growing. And it's really good to see that much needed investment in the city. Now, I don't have any actual stats to prove this, but in general, there seems to be a lot of new construction happening all around Lethbridge. Mostly in the new residential builds, there are foundations going in everywhere. And the new communities are really starting to take shape, which is fantastic to see and are signs of a healthy economy down here. Did you know that Lethbridge was one of the fastest growing countries? Now, obviously, Alberta isn't a country, but if you were to compare Alberta's growth compared to any other country on the planet, Alberta grew faster than any other country, which I just think is mind-boggling. And a lot of this has to do with affordability out here that I spoke about earlier. Lethbridge has also seen its fair share of growth. And according to Lethbridge News Now, Lethbridge has grown 1.3% in 2023, which is significant for any city. With that growing population, we're also seeing new elementary schools, like the one located in Gary Station that's going to be welcome to the west side of Lethbridge. Did you also know that Lethbridge has over 130 parks and over 260 kilometers of pathways throughout the city? And we have more park space per capita than anywhere else in Alberta. If you love the idea of being less dense and more outdoor space, then Lethbridge could be the perfect place for you. One of my favorite features about Lethbridge is the location to some of the most world-class outdoor destinations, like Waterton Lakes National Park, which is a dark sky preserve that's filled with hiking, camping, boating, swimming, and fantastic eats. There's also Reading on Stone, which is one of the coolest hoodoo landscapes you will likely ever see. Lethbridge is also only about an hour from the US border, which is close to over-the-border shopping, or stopping in Whitefish, or just enjoying the outdoors in Montana. You can go skiing in the winter or boating in the summer. We are also not that far away from places like Drumheller, which is the dinosaur fossil capital of the world, or even Banff National Park, which is probably the most gorgeous mountain destination you will ever see in your entire life. And who could forget about the Crow's Nest Pass, which is a little bit closer than those other mountain destinations, where you can find crown land to go hunting, camping, fishing, you name it, even quadding, and it's all about an hour and a half drive away. I know that I have hyped Lethbridge up quite a bit so far, but honestly, that's because this city is going through some very exciting times with the new investment and new growth that our city is seeing. But now it's time to get into the cons. And for the first con, this is tied to the growth that we're seeing here, which is a tighter housing market and lower inventory. With low inventory, we've continuously seen our housing market continue to heat up, with prices starting to be on the incline. Back when I made this first pros and cons video, our average house price was about $350,000, and now it's up to $380,000, which thankfully is still very affordable. However, we're seeing more competition and more competing offers in this market than we have ever seen. Going hand in hand with the housing market is an even more competitive rental market. Average rents are at an all-time high right now, and they seem to be increasing every single day. Right now, I would say the average 2-bedroom rent is going for about $1,300 to $1,500 per month, and the average 3-bedroom rent is probably anywhere between $1,500 to $1,800 per month. Now, not only is the competition out there just crazy, but I've heard countless stories of landlords getting upwards of 100 applicants just for one rental. So if you're a renter, beware that you're likely going to have a lot of competition out there. One of the cons that I hope changes in the future is Park Place Mall. Now, it's not that the mall's bad. They did recently do some updates to the food court and some big renovations, but there seems to be a lot of turnover, and it kind of just seems to be very stagnant in there, and the traffic in the mall seems to be on the decline. I'm sure that this is just the case with most malls across North America even, but I do hope that the pendulum will swing and that we do see a more active mall in the future. For the most part, if me and my wife want to go for a big shopping trip, we usually do make our way up to Calgary, but honestly, that doesn't really happen anymore. I mean, in this day and age, if you're millennials like us, you're probably perfectly happy shopping online. I'm sure everyone can agree with me that no one likes to pay taxes. And if you do like to pay taxes, you're probably lying. But in Lethbridge specifically, we do have some of the highest property tax rates in Alberta. And this year's tax rate was actually raised a whopping 7% on residential homes, which drives everyone nuts. Now, in general, I do get a lot of questions about why our taxes are so high, And I think the overall reason is because Lethbridge is very spread out and we're not very dense, meaning that we do not collect a lot of rent vertically. For example, in a dense city with a ton of high rises, you can collect a lot of rent in a small area by collecting taxes on all of those properties that go up vertically. Whereas in Lethbridge, we're very spread out and we take up a lot of space and we don't collect a lot of taxes because we're so spread out. So yes, our property taxes are a little higher, but our average home price is very, very low, and we're also less dense. So just take the good with the bad there. Also, with the increase in population, I have noticed that the Lethbridge traffic has been a little bit busier than I remember or that I'm used to. Now, your average commute time is still going to be that same 20 minutes max, like I mentioned earlier, but just anecdotally, there seems to be more traffic. Especially, I used to notice it in the summer when all the university and college students would go home. We usually saw a sleepy Lethbridge summer on the roads, but lately there just seems to be a steady amount of traffic all year round. Now, the final con, which is still not changed from the original video, is the Lethbridge wind. Now, Lethbridge is known for being the windy city, and we do get gusts of upward 100 kilometers an hour. I mean, like right now outside, there's probably like 100 kilometer an hour winds. I hope you can't hear it in the mic, but literally it's just howling out there. However, it is the wind that keeps us mild during those winter months when we get those Chinook winds from the west that warms us up and melts all of our snow, again, during those winter months. However, it's definitely the fall and the spring when you're really gonna notice the wind, either bringing in the cold air or bringing in warm air. It can literally be 0 degrees in the early spring and we get a good wind for a day, and then the next day it's gonna be plus 20. And the same goes for the fall, where it's 20 degrees one day, and the wind comes in and the snow blows in and there'll be snow the next day. And then literally in that same week, it could be back up to plus 20 and then we get snow again. I'm not kidding. The weather in the springtime can be dramatic. However, the good news again is that the winters are mild and the summers are usually very calm, hot, and dry. And of course, we do get that 333 days of sunshine per year, which if you're from places like BC or Ontario, you'll know that your winters can be very gloomy all winter long. Now, if you learned something new, or if you're from Lethbridge and you think that I missed something about these pros and cons of our beautiful city, please leave a comment down below. And if you're looking to move to Lethbridge, all of my contact information is located down below in the description, or you can call, text, or email me on this number right here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.